So, welcome everyone to episode 6 of Curious Success. Today's episode is going to be focused on writing the circle of love. Nevertheless, my perspective on how I looked at writing the circle of love is universally developing one's network in whatever way that looks like to them. It could be with family, it could be with friends, coworkers, and pretty much looking to build a legacy, build something of substance, build something that's lasting, and being productive in terms of that group that you are considering to be close to you and supportive and willing to do whatever you want to do in terms of furthering your development in life. Um, so the focus is going to be based on that. But before we get into our extensive list of questions, we're actually going to pretty much do a go around and do some shop talk. And we're going to be talking about things that we're passionate about, internally and currently. So I'm going to actually direct it to one of my guests who's going to introduce himself. And then that person will pretty much just be sharing about one of their passions that they are internally feeling and currently experiencing. And once again, my name is Rasheem, and I'm one of the key contributors to Curious Success.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm a teacher in the South Bronx. My eternal passion has been teaching. I didn't know it was my passion till I started doing it, sort of by accident. And then sort of after a few years, I became more interested in teaching younger students because I was at a community college. So now my students are between 17 to 25 at the most. It's definitely something I'm passionate about. I can't envision myself having any other occupation. But my current passion is 2 weeks now I've been searching? I've been on a 2-week search for a dog. My dog passed away, and I have to fill my void of love. And I'm going to go meet her today, and her name is Polly.
Hey guys, Simba Hughes here. Another key contributor, one of the hosts of the podcast. So as far as passion goes, current passion, what's my current passion right now? I'm definitely on this music vibe right now, syncing up with one of my buddies who, he's actually a producer, and, just gonna, help, kind of do an A&R, just, hear how it sounds and, make suggestions. Yeah. So, pretty awesome stuff. How the week went for me, really tough, rough transition in work, a lot of movements, decided to make some changes. So we'll see how that goes. I'll let you guys in on that in the next podcast, but, all in all, I had a great week, great week. Other than that, hung out with friends and family. So, that's pretty much it.
Hi, my name is Christina, and currently what I'm really passionate about is Latin dance. And I'm learning more salsa and bachata, and I'm really excited because in a couple weeks, after a lot of intensive rehearsals, we're going to perform at the halftime show at Madison Square Garden. And it'll be really cool.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
I did it last year in September, and it was the biggest adrenaline rush I've ever felt. I thought I was going to fall in front of thousands of people, but I actually didn't. But throughout, I guess, my whole life, I've been really passionate about and excited about is human connection and building those connections and being curious and talking to people wherever I go. I travel a lot, and I've been to all of Central America, a bunch of countries in Southeast Asia, Cuba, places in South America as well. And it's really funny how I feel like regardless of what culture or country I go to, I feel like at the very foundation of everything, people want to feel loved and understood and connected, and it's really great to kind of just talk to people and feel humbled when you go there. So really excited to kind of continue those connections from when I've traveled to the different places that I've worked at to kind of my different friend circles. I really try to maintain contact with them, and it's great all the different things I've learned from them and can kind of hopefully bring that forward to the new connections that I make. Really excited to be here.
That's awesome. Oh, before we go on to Rasheem, I'm gonna ask, what halftime show at MSG? When is that?
Oh, so it's actually the first week of July, and it's for the women's basketball game.
Oh, New York Liberty. I'm gonna get some tickets to that game.
Cheer.
All right. So I would say one thing that I'm eternally passionate about is helping others. That's why I worked in the nonprofit field. I worked in the nonprofit field for 10 years plus now, because I really believe sharing is caring. And I wanted to make sure whenever that day comes and I'm being placed in the planet Earth, that people can, speak highly of the mark that I left in this world. And that's something I'm very passionate about. I really feel like as much interaction that I have with people of various different backgrounds in life, I want to make sure that I leave them with something of substance. And I feel like I'm gaining something from them as well. So that's something I'm very passionate about. What I'm currently passionate about is really trying to write the circle of love with family, with friends, and expanding on that, and really trying to figure out the best way that we can stop being dysfunctional but being more functional. Because I know my family is definitely very dysfunctional, and I know I have friends that have been used to more of a individualized concept or approach to life, and I always found that troublesome to me because it's not like we're not all talented on our own, but the fact is that I've brought to their attention multiple times on ways that we can actually grow further together, and they kind of like brushed it off. So that's something I'm kind of like reestablishing again amongst friends and family in ways where I can actually write that circle of love. So feel free, everyone, to feel comfortable in this space. Let your hair down, your hair's out. The hair's out. But just feel comfortable as we approach these or address these questions. No one's claiming to be an expert here. We just sharing our personal opinions, based on our LOX, living off our own experience. So it's just one of those type of conversations, and I look forward to actually getting some good insight from this. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right.
Go for it.
So, starting with question 1. What does it mean to be unified? Anyone can chime in.
All right. I think it means that you and one other person, maybe you and a lot of other people, have some sort of singular vision or a singular idea about something that you feel prepared to go through or pursue, as some unit together.
I'm just looking over. I'm not saying you have
guys,
to.
he looked right at me after that. But just to piggyback, I agree. It's coming together with one kind of vision, kind of idea, and moving forward with that. And obviously, so it's on different levels you can look at it. But I think that's everyone, you coming together and you have the same ideas or same mindset that you want to take forward with you, and you guys all agree on it.
Okay. You want to chime in, Christina?
Sure.
Feel free.
So I agree definitely with what they said, and being unified is about being together. That sort of, I think, foundation of be passion and vision, and that's what really is able to kind of drive them together. Because without having perhaps that goal in mind and that shared connection, it might be harder to work together. But when people find an instant sort of like connection of something, you instantly feel more familiar with them. And I think that really helps as you're trying to build your connections, when you find things that you can be unified about.
I agree with you all. I think when I think of being unified, or what does that mean, it's sharing a thought, but being disciplined in sharing that thought or perspective or way of life that one is looking to go about living. I feel like that, because life, tests us every day. I don't. I feel like if it's not a shared discipline for whatever that perspective is, where no one's like steering away from any adversity, that's when you are empowered and you are unified. So that's how I would look at it in terms of what does that mean to me. All right. Is unity a complex feat?
Absolutely. I think so. I'll take the lead on this one. I'll go, but absolutely, I think it's super complex on multiple levels, right? Even sometimes to get, if we were to say agree on all one idea, one thought, I think a lot of it is in my opinion, it's putting your ego to the side and pulling yourself back and saying, hey, you know what, my idea or whatever, I'm going to accept that someone else's idea is better, and we're going to move forward with that. Um, and then I think just on a cultural and bigger level, uh, so many different cultures, so many different philosophies, ideas about how you think I should go about this life, religion, foundation is really hard to get people to kind of sync up on the same thing and agree that this is the path that we're going to do, right? If you believe in something and I believe in something, how we're gonna kind of speak on it and come to the same page or align on the same point if you are a strong advocate on whatever point you believe in, right? So it's absolutely a complex feat, and I think a lot of it is kind of putting your ego to the side and saying, hey, you know what, this, I mean, I like it, but this is the best decision going forward on so many different levels. And lastly, and I use this now a lot, one of a new senior management, a new senior individual, at my firm came in, and he had this saying that when he was giving us a town hall, and he said, if you want to go to this point, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. So I think that kind of ties in with the whole unity. And if you really want to, from a cultural standpoint, from a, nation, from a global perspective, if you guys want to go forward, unity is something that, you definitely need to have. But it's definitely complex. It's definitely not an easy feat. Not black and white.
Well, I'll chime in now. I would say it's definitely a complex feat because I don't know if there was even a starting point, or I don't know if it's just a way things are nowadays. And I'm sure there was definitely a starting point, but I'm off the top of the head, I'm just not recalling right now where it might have been a starting point. But I feel there is such a promotion of distrust where people don't trust one another, and it's kind of like they say it's a saying is before you can save someone else, you got to be able to save yourself. It's called self savior. And I just feel like a lot of people have that mentality, and maybe distrust could start from their families or their family environment, where just the level of life conditions that they might have experienced, where that's why makes it unity is such a complicated feat for them, and they don't really trust people, and it's hard for people to do that. But I feel like the lack of trust, and trust that I don't know if it can ever be unconditional, because I feel like some people will use as a safety net the fact that they distrust people anyway. So it's like, okay, well, I didn't expect too much from this person regardless, if they failed them at some point, and showing them unity. Okay, this person wasn't agreeing with me. All right, I figured that.
But I think what you're saying is like two points. So like one, how I viewed it initially was, because I don't know you, maybe I have a stereotypical, view of a certain particular individual based on culture, based on race or whatever. As a result, I don't, trust you. So I'm not going to be unified or even want to even have that conversation. So I think having that conversation and they, understanding, hey, like, this person or these people are not what I thought they were. And now I trust them. Now, I feel that I'm comfortable and we can unite, right? And I think that a lot of that needs to happen across the globe. The second piece what I found you were talking about, which is a little bit different, where you're saying if someone failed you, that kind of implies that like I trusted you before, something happened, you failed me, and as a result, you lost my trust, right? So now it's a little bit different. So I think I agree with you. Trusting is very important, and I think that's again another kind of box that needs to be checked for unity to happen. But It's definitely a complex feat. There's just so many different things in there to figure out and to solve.
I think it's yes, it's complicated. I think in some instances it's more complicated than others. Because sometimes, especially at work, you are asked to trust people. You're even, possibly forced to be unified with them and do something with them. And as an example of something that happened at work like a week ago, we were all asked to unify around this pretty significant problem, and it was one site of our job and another site. And like trust for me was very much breached, and I now choose to not be unified with them. I'm supposed to. Like, I'm not going to. And like that's difficult for me because on one hand I'm being told I have to do this, but like in my right mind I know that I shouldn't. So I'm not. Whereas sometimes in your personal relationships, like there's not a force there. There's, a built trust, and that takes time, and there can be conversations. At work, I think it can be more complicated.
That you say that there's personal and then like work unity, different complications. I kind of think like at work sometimes, you do run into instances where something will be an objective that you might not agree with at all, but you should be unified with that because it's your job and you have expectations. And actually, I think similarly on a personal level with maybe your friends, especially maybe like with your partner or your family, you might actually compromise on some of your views that you feel very passionately about to either make them feel happy or to meet them halfway or to be unified so that you guys can kind of like go forward together.
And part of me feels that's kind of necessary because I don't think we're ever going to all maybe feel the same way. So people, you have to pull back and say, hey, I'm going to compromise to,
to
go
try to
forward.
be together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's really complicated, but...
You're all in agreement. Are people too individualized nowadays? I can start.
Yeah, you start.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, no, honestly speaking, I feel like that has become a norm, especially nowadays. I feel like it has become a norm. Whereas that's maybe just like how I feel because people just such a lack of trust that people going to make sure that their behinds are covered first and foremost. And if they, like I said, if they feel like if they decided to build a joint effort with someone, and this can happen in work and outside of work, because it's like, okay, well, I really don't like that coworker or whatever the case, so I know I'm just going to take care of whatever work I got to take care of and do my job as sufficient as possible. But I know I'm not going to rely on that person for too much because they showed me they couldn't carry their load on this project or this assignment or this task. So I'm going to do what I need to do.
Would you fault that person, though?
Would I fault them?
Fault. Like, I mean, if I'm your friend and you're doing something and I know I gave you enough chances and you didn't meet it, next time I'll be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should do it myself. So I'm not sure. So like, it's not all bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, but
In that scenario.
in that scenario, yeah. But then it's like, if you're supposed to be working or is sharing a responsibility to get a project or a task done, and that person is not assisting in a way that you can actually successfully get that done, then you're the weakest link. And it's like that's taken away from what you're trying to do. It's like if you're saying you have the same goal to grow and actually build something, then it shouldn't be that person that keeps presenting destruction when you're trying to build. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. The only thing I kind of disagree with around is like I'm not sure if it's been nowadays. Like that whole that's like self-preservation. I'm not sure that's like nowadays. I think that's always been like that where I'm kind of selfishly you want to kind of better yourself, whether it be professional, whether it be personal, right? I have certain friends, definitely the social climbers or whatnot, or people literally like in situations just to better themselves. They don't care about the significant other. They don't care about, their, inner circle of friends. They're just trying to climb the social ladder of meeting people who are, I guess, quote unquote, successful in different aspects of life and bettering themselves. And you have conversations about them. Oh, so along the lines of unity, and they don't give two cents about it, right? So I'm not sure if that's now. Maybe there's something going on now where people, it's more pronounced. But I've always felt like that people have always looked out for themselves.
Well,
Go
my
ahead.
rebuttal is
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
based on you a tech guy as well. With today's technology, how that actually promotes it as well, where a lot of people can just do everything from their home for the most part in terms of interactions and so forth. And I think that lends to like one being more individualized. And I don't like, if I want to date these multiple people, I could just look at this Tinder profile and just do my swipe thing and don't have to have these interactions where it's like, okay, it's something totally different now, and how they can approach that. And it's like, okay, well, I find the one I like, boop, swipe it to whatever swipe side it needs to be swiped to. And then it's like, now, it's different. You understand what I'm saying?
So are you saying like people are more into themselves now as opposed to like, or they're like, I guess more,
The unit.
less social because of all these
Yes.
things? So they're kind of into, okay, then yes, absolutely.
That's exactly the point.
Absolutely.
then
That's what you
yes.
meant. Absolutely.
So
That's my
the
bad.
point. Whereas
I
there's a less social aspect of it, from the technology age that we've grown into,
Yes.
and how that has taken away from people like even want to pick up a phone nowadays. They'd rather send text messages.
Yeah, I don't know
and
what's
then
going on.
actually have a call with someone, and have that interaction.
I don't know how to dial a number anymore.
Yeah, it's done that in a huge way. I don't even know like my fiance's cell phone number by heart. We've been dating for like 2 years. I literally don't know what it is. But like when people,
Okay, that's bad.
yeah, that's really bad.
That is bad.
Yeah,
That
but like
is
you
bad.
see like friends sitting around a table and like they're all on their phone, and it's like that's not really a world of reality. And what's going on Facebook is not like a representation of reality.
I think that maybe it's that now there's this platform or this device that helps you escape feeling a bit uncomfortable or awkward.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a social setting and like say you walk into a room for like a networking event and you don't immediately see someone what are you going to do? Are you going to like go and approach someone right away, or are you going to check out
Yeah,
your
bust
phone
out the
slowly,
phone.
like pretend like you're busy or whatnot? But I don't know. I think among friends, it's important to try to like build those relationships, tracing back to how that's something I'm passionate about and having connections. There's this interesting game that we played once with someone who is really on their phone a lot. So we're at the dinner table, and the point of the game is to like, put everybody's phones, in the middle of the table, and whoever reaches for their phone first has to pick up the entire bill. And you'd be surprised how quickly people forget, like, they shouldn't touch
Yeah,
their
I'm
phone.
sure.
And it's just kind of, I guess, pretty awful, how people, I think it's actually completely rude if you're at dinner or you're interacting with someone and you're not engaged with what's happening at the time, unless it's important, of course.
Yeah,
if my
yeah,
mother's calling me, if
Yeah.
Which
an
I'm sure the
emergency is
person would be
happening,
fine with.
of course.
Right.
But if you're just like social mediating,
Right.
that's just...
And you know what's interesting about that? Absolutely, before all this technology, definitely rude, disrespectful. You will be called out on it, like, if, female friends will be like, how dare you, like, if it, kind of recapping the night. Part of me feels like the whole debate just on technology, everything is, disrupting what we currently have. Like, part of me is like, it's a little bit, the rules have changed. Like you have a smartwatch, like, and there's the Apple Watch and all those things. Like, there's a lot of different devices that you can have other than your phone that distracts you from having a conversation, and the other person's going to be like, well, that's rude. And part of me is like, how can you really you have to really truly disconnect if you really don't want to be distracted? Because I could like put away my phone and like resist it, maybe for like an hour or two, hour and a half with wherever dinner. But let's say if I had a smartwatch like Rasheem, I'm like, I could still like communicate. I'm still connected. Or remember the Google Glass with the glass, like if that's actual something, I'm talking to you, but I could be like, doing this and playing with my, the actual glasses and, being connected still. So I agree with you, but part of me feels like, it may be a new rules. Like, it's
What it
going
boils
to be
down
different.
to is like at the end of the day, no excuses. I don't care if you have a watch on or if you have another device or another wearable. If you prioritize our relationship together, you're going to put that away. So
Absolutely,
it's
I agree.
just,
Yep.
if that makes any sense, I would still count it as disrespectful if I'm going to completely disconnect to try to build our relationship together and try to get to know you and to try to really listen to you, then
That should be done.
I feel like it should be reciprocated. And if you would rather spend time doing whatever you're doing, then that's okay, I respect that. Then I'm gonna go do my thing.
Yeah, you're going to do the same thing.
I'm gonna go
Do
find
something
someone
else.
who would rather share that similar. I think like
And
passion.
respect your time.
I think that if it was someone you really cared about and they were doing that, you would want to call them out on doing something like that.
Does unity amongst friends or family have limitations?
Yes.
Let them go. Answer away.
Yeah, it does. So that doesn't mean that like your love for them or your care for them has limitations. But if we're saying that unity is you moving together in a unit, supporting one another, yeah, you can do things that are, betraying or making things difficult or doing wrong to somebody within that unified group. And like that is like a deal breaker. And it's not always healthy to just sort of bring somebody along with you for the for the sense of, or for, I guess, just the sake of saying that like you are the singular unit. I think that it's the same thing with the cell phone. Like there's a social contract that you have, and if you break it, you break it.
Yeah, I think that having unity amongst friends and family can be quite difficult at times, but what's interesting is that when the friend connection is deep enough and when you love them enough, and family, there's some other kind of interesting
another little
je ne
thing.
sais quoi about that, where because they share the same blood as you, it's almost like you hold them to a higher standard, but at the same time, if they really hurt you or mess up, it's somehow more
You don't
forgivable.
understand me, Mom.
Somehow more forgivable than if someone else who isn't your blood or isn't as close to you does the same thing. But unity amongst them can be hard, especially if friends are coming in from different cultural perspectives. They're raised differently, and I know people, for example, that are really good friends, but they just share different viewpoints on almost everything, but they come together on one particular hobby or passion. So.
Oh.
Do you have an equally strong reaction?
Oh, you want me to go real quick to get your thoughts together?
Go ahead.
Interesting. The family dynamic is definitely true, where it's a little bit different. What's interesting about family, and maybe definitely more so than friends. Like, so even my family, like, and I told Rasheem this week, we went back maybe 2 weeks ago to the Caribbean for my grandmother's 80th birthday. So like everyone came down. Right, everyone, we're hanging out, or a whole bunch of family, it's kind of like a family reunion, because I'm like, who's that person? And while everyone, generally speaking, is fine, there were, even my dad and my mom, so my cousin, she's been, only child, not sure if, that means anything, but she, has a strained relationship with her mom. And as a result of that, it's affected how I interact to her, because I'm like, I'm not going to treat you like how I used to treat you based on how you're treating my aunt, your mother, right? So there was like a limitation there. Like we didn't speak for years. Like I saw her the first time this year, probably after like 2 years, no communication, right? So, and we all went down there, and, there are limitations, but it just, at least with family, like you always feel like there's some way to always reconnect, right? And we reconnected, and everyone had a great time. And that's kind of opposed to friendship. Like I've definitely had friends who we were super close, girlfriends, where, girls who were friends, and, and we were super close, and
Really?
no, and strictly platonic, and, for some reason that bloodline keeps you together when nothing else really should be. And friends is where it's like, well, I'm sorry, and eat the simplest of things. That, where, again, going to your point, distrust. She felt I lost her trust, and after that, that was it, right? And it went downhill from there. So it's very. There's definitely limitations. I think the limitations are less with families. There's always some easier way to make up with family. Not all the time, but more so than friends.
Okay, cool. I think for me, because I mentioned before how like my family was dysfunctional. I had five sisters, and pretty much I was like the only male in the household, and because my father was not around, so it had me in an environment where like I had to seek out like my male friends, for that connection, to what I considered boyhood and and then eventually manhood to be. So that was something I had sought out. So what I felt like it wasn't being provided to me within the household, I had to seek outside of the house. And then because I was the youngest, the baby,
Oh,
so
aw.
all that good stuff, whatever. But no, it was challenging. It was challenging to go through that. Like I just felt like you know my mother at times, my sisters could understand where I was coming from, how I was looking to grow, how I was, based on whatever perceptions I had from watching TV, listening to music, seeing other male role models or people I considered to be role models at the time of me growing up, how I wanted to be strong and what that really looked like for a young man. So that was definitely a limitation within the household, but kind of inspired me or uh, kind of like compelled me to go outside and look into my environment and see what male figures were out there that could actually be positive role models for me. But then where that had limitations was that some of these guys were drug dealers. I grew up in Brooklyn, and an environment where that's what I was exposed to. So it was like, okay, well, I can't really rely on this guy to, show me too much. But the fact is, within that community, he was looked at as a positive role model in so many words that represented strength. So that's a perspective I would share.
There we go. All right. Didn't know you were a baby boy. Now I know something about you.
What are some of the fears when it comes to unifying, besides distrust?
To me, so I'll give an example, right? So, in just unifying, like in vision and in relationships. So I'll give an example, and it's great now that I don't have that fear with her. So we're able to discuss many different things and share similar viewpoints and whether it be socially or on all these different things that are happening in America and the world. So like one of my fears is, especially when me personally, it's when unifying with other people. So on a personal level, just forget work, when it's like someone who's from a different culture, a different race, grew up completely different, went to different schools, had a different system, a different life. So our thought process, everything is totally different. And when we're discussing like those, major issues, my fear is being like dismissed or offending them or losing their friendship or, being offended, being kind of cast away, right? If I say something that offends you and we're trying to have a conversation. And it's one of the things. So I'll give an example. Like one of my ex-girlfriends, she was, I'm only saying this because it helps in the story. She was white, and she was here. And I say that because it was different culture, totally different background from what I knew, how I was raised. And she's probably one of the only few people who I can discuss like many different issues and come to have a conversation and kind of like unify and say, hey, you know what? That makes sense. Like all these different issues that are going on in America with, with the elections and religion and the LGBT community and all those things to unite, right? To come together. You need to have conversations. You need to kind of sit at the table. And she's one of the few people who I can actually sit at the table at, different culture, but I don't feel afraid to offend or to say things that may offend other people who I don't know. And as a result of that, we're better able to understand each other and actually come to an agreement on many different major points going on in our society today. So it's a little tidbit.
I would say for me, I feel like because I really want to most likely, if I'm looking to trying to unify um, with a group of persons or one individual or whatever in the case, um, the fact that that relationship can actually probably be lost is a fear for me based on that person just not doing what I felt like they should be doing. Um, and I don't like thinking bad about someone or like writing a person off, but I know that's something I experienced before when I was like, especially I think working in the world of nonprofit where it's like, it's the business of caring and you feel like everyone should be on the same page. And when you see that everyone's not on the same page, it's really disheartening. And it's like, damn, like, okay, well, you're not someone I can rely on and feel like is on my team, So I think that's definitely a fear that I've had and probably still feel just in terms like, if I had a relationship with that person and we were unified on some fronts to get to a front where I feel like, okay, this is going to help us further grow and you're not seeing that or you're not capable of, meeting me where I'm at, then that relationship can be lost or possibly lost. And then it's like, okay, well, damn it. It is what it is. Like, so I think that's definitely one of the fears that I have experienced and still somewhat experienced when it comes to just like, unifying.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because as you kind of go further along with somebody, maybe you discover that whatever your shared vision or shared passion isn't at the same level. Maybe you're 2 times more excited about a certain topic than the person that you're with, and it's maybe scary that what if they lose interest in it, or what if you don't have that shared side kind of thing anymore. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying with maybe not having that relationship there or losing that connection.
I don't feel fear. I feel like any level of fear. I feel like other feelings, like I feel reservations. What's that quote you said at the very beginning?
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That one.
Yeah. I feel like in my work life, in my social life, in my personal life, even in my family, I do things alone. Because when I do them alone, I feel like they work and they work in the way I want them to, like, because I did them.
Let me
And wait.
Go ahead. I'll ask you some questions
In
about
my
that.
work life, I can name maybe 1 or 2 people that I feel like true unification with, and like I don't wish to spend time forcing something that like I feel is otherwise like unnatural. Is don't. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I thought she was like, okay. I'm like, what? Whoa there. So let me ask you this, right? So, and this is what I mean about having a conversation, because to me a lot of times it's just about really honest dialogue and getting all the reservations, getting it out there. So that's what I was saying about my example. I'm able to get everything out there and be like a weight off my shoulders. But let me ask you this: you say you go alone for a friend's family work life. Don't you think or believe that in those scenarios, syncing up with someone, syncing up with a team, with a friend's family, may bring you to a better decision, or may have you, however, what issue or problem you have, guys can unite, come together and say, hey, you know what, this is a better solution instead of your solution, which was doing it by yourself?
Like very rarely, if ever, do I feel that way. And I don't know if I think like even when I was young, everyone always told me like I'd never asked for help doing anything, even if it would have been better for me. So maybe part of this is that I've been raised, my parents are immigrants, so there's only like them and my brother and myself. So I've never been raised around like a large family network. It's never something that's like been available to me. So it's never something that I've really grown up relying on, and then, thus, like, I've never seen it as very important. So I'm not saying that my way of thinking and doing that is better. It's just the way I've convinced myself, is. And I guess on the occasions that I've had to be very unified with people, which is work where I'm like forced to do it, I mostly feel like
it's a waste of time.
Yeah,
I
I mostly feel like it's a waste of time. It's like a tiny fraction. I think it was better.
To me, sometimes, like, especially for work, I think, and I know exactly what you're talking about from a work perspective, but that doesn't mean that, syncing, maybe that's just the wrong people, or, that you're syncing up. Like, if you synced up with people who, had a different opinion or different way of doing things, maybe you'll say, hey, you know what? Like, I don't want to go this alone again, because bringing in someone else will bring value to whatever issue, problem that I want to solve, or task that I have to do. Maybe it's that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
So let's go on to our next question. How should one go about making right any dysfunction within their network?
Conversation. I can't think of anything besides like, maybe extensive and like long conversation. And like maybe that doesn't even lead to you to, agreeing, but it could at least lead to you to understanding one another. Sometimes people just don't understand like where one another are coming from. So if you could just at least agree to disagree, I think that would at least, maybe bring you back together.
I second that, right? That's what I've been saying. Conversation, honest dialogue, putting it out there, and understanding someone. I think will, have kind of rectified dysfunction. I also think what Christina was saying, a little bit of compromise. Like, I don't know, I could be in situations, and I'm a guy, if I'm right, it was bad, I'm right. I'm not capitulating. It was just bad, but I'm not capitulating. I'm like, you got to give, because I ain't giving. And I've learned over time that sometimes that to unify and
don't compromise our God code.
to unify and to get to the place that is the best route or path, there's some compromise. So I'll actually, for the betterment of to rectify the dysfunction, maybe I need to pull back, for example. So I have two sisters, so it's three of us, and they're constant, even today or in this week, where we had conversations, and I had to tell my younger sister, hey, I'm going to compromise on this one and pull back. I told my mom that, so honest dialogue, conversation, and then if understanding the situation and know enough, sometimes you have to pull back, take your ego out of it.
I definitely agree with you both. I feel like, in a situation where there's dysfunction within one's network, you have to pretty much be assertive and be fearless about addressing that issue. I think if you really want to exact change, you have to be ready and be aggressive about that. If you don't be aggressive towards that, then it's going to remain as an issue for you, and it's probably only going to weigh you down. I don't know. I really think that's really important. Like, I once again go to my family where that I was away from family for a little while and kind of like didn't have that much interaction, and then I came back and felt like we needed to be better connected. And I made sure I reached out to everybody, brothers, sisters. I do have brothers, but I don't have the best relationship with them. But I say, you know what? Hey, I'm reaching out to everybody, Let's try to connect, Even, my absentee father was like, hey, let me try to connect with that person and try to bring everybody together. And it didn't work, but I made effort. Hey, I made effort,
So would you then say you don't know how to rectify dysfunction, or because you tried it didn't work? Do you like have another? Hey, you know what? Let me give this another shot, or let me link up with one of my other sisters.
Sometimes you gotta let it go, because I made multiple attempts, and when I seen that it wasn't being reciprocated, it was like, okay, well, what is the purpose of trying with everybody if I can't be successful with everybody? So I said, well, there's some people that have been listening and realized that we do need to be better connected, and that's who I continue to work with. The others is like, oh, I only can do so much. It's not like I won't acknowledge that person for that, but it's still like when you use terms like fatherhood, like brotherhood, like sisterhood, and that's not what you actually are about. It's not what we really have. We're connected by blood or whatever the case, but that's pretty much all we have. Like, we haven't got to that level where like we really know what that means and have practiced it. So, going on to the next question. What principles or values do you think should be utilized when establishing a team, network, or your clique?
Understanding. I think that it's really interesting nowadays, but whenever I meet new people, one of the first things they ask is like, oh, what's your Myers-Briggs? And I think nowadays people might understand that we're built differently, we function differently, we comprehend information differently, we communicate differently, and we just tick all differently. And trying to approach somebody in the way that they understand things would really be helpful. So as you're trying to build a team together, or when you're trying to build something together, you have to see where everyone's coming from. You have to understand kind of like their strengths, understand their weaknesses, and say, they're not going to be the best at everything, but I know they're going to carry us really far because they understand A, B, and C. But where they lack, maybe this other team member is really strong in, and that's how they can complement each other. Also, what's really interesting is that just going a little bit off on understanding, I came across something in the past year called different love languages and different apology languages. I don't know if you've heard of this before or not, but it makes sense when someone says it. It just wasn't something I was completely thinking about. It talks about how there's 5 major love languages and that people understand love differently, whether it's through touch, acts of service, gifts, and then there's 2 other ones, but basically some people might really like gifts. Oh, words of affection. So some people might really love it when they say, you're doing really well.
I love you.
Good
Great job.
I love you.
Continue
You're
all this.
excelling.
Yeah.
But other people would appreciate it more when you're actually showing action with that. You're showing them like, hey, I'm going to do this for you. And then, quality time is the last one, where when we're engaged, like, I'm going to spend time with you. And that's my love language. I understand people by how much time they spend with me. I feel that I'm important and cared about and understood when they spend time with me, not when they buy me gifts, not when they touch me, not when they say good job. And similarly, what's interesting is that there's also like apology languages where people want to be apologized. When people are looking for apologies or apologizing, there's so many different ways people do it. And it's interesting if you ever
Some
take
of it is familiar.
No, it's so interesting when you
different.
take it. Like, for example, as you're taking it, it's like, oh, how would you prefer someone to apologize to you if they really messed up? Do you want them to ask for forgiveness? Like, oh, can you please forgive me for doing this? Want them to give like repentance, saying like, I'm so sorry I did this. Here's how I will not do this in the future. I'm sorry I'm late. I will not do this by setting an alarm and leaving early. Do you want them to say, really sorry and show their remorse? Like, I'm so sorry, I feel terrible, and just talk about how awful they feel. See, like, it's different for everybody. For me, like, I don't like it when someone immediately asks for forgiveness and they're like, can you please forgive me? Because I feel like you've hurt me. You should tell me how you're sorry. You should tell me how it won't happen in the future instead of asking me to forgive you, which is something that can be really hard to do. While I've been talking to one of my friends and they're like, really, that's the first thing I want to hear. I want to hear them say like, can you forgive me? So what's interesting is that when you're building a team together, when you're having relationships, sometimes you're so involved in your own emotions or your own circle that you might forget their earnest attempts at really apologizing or showing you love or showing you something that is good might be the opposite of what you actually want.
Great point.
Yeah.
When you were saying that, I was literally thinking of different friends.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm
It
like,
really was.
So I know I have a friend, one of my good boys, knew him since I was like 4. Way is quality time. Like that's how he apologizes. Like he's gonna oh, I'm gonna spend time with you. I'm gonna do things for you. Different things like that. Another friend of mine, she will.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I have to use the bathroom. Nah, man.
All right, guys.
It's the limitations.
All right.
Respect.
You ain't gonna say no more. Okay.
Or treat you.
Yeah, so it made me think of a girl. She and I were best friends for like many years. Till she did me like wrong. Extra wrong.
Did you fight?
Yeah. Like what happened? Can you talk about it?
Was hair pulled?
I fought her boyfriend. Like I literally fought him. He was the worst. He was the king of like your friend's terrible boyfriends. I've never heard of a worse boyfriend in my entire life. Ever. I'm just gonna have to say what he did. But it sounds like made up. I found out that he was a porn star. And she never knew. I swear to God, that's true. And she never knew. And like I told her. And like he called me a liar. And like we fought in her front yard. And she never she acted like it never happened. And like I did make things up and like just kept it on. It's kept on dating him.
Like, you had something.
What? I brought my phone out. I was like, oh, he's not. Play. Oh, yeah, I showed her.
And everyone knew. No.
Yeah.
That was him.
That was him. Because he had this tattoo of this alien right here. It was like you couldn't mistake it. Anyway, so we stopped talking. Until like months later, she just started talking to me again. Like it was all cool.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't like what happened. Let's move forward. And I was like, no, I don't want to move forward. But never, ever, ever did I just say, like, what I need from you is to tell me what you did wrong and, like, just say sorry. I just want you to say sorry and say what you did instead of just, imagining nothing. But, like, that's really my fault because, like, I never even, like, communicated what I needed. All that is now overshadowed by my story about what actually happened with him, which was so strange.
That's some Jerry.
Yeah, it definitely was. It definitely was.
Whoa. Wow.
Who won that fight?
We didn't like put our hands on each other. We were like this close together and like shoving each other. Yeah. We were like shoving each other and she had to like separate us.
Wow.
Okay.
It was.
I'm learning a lot today. I'll tell you guys that.
Well, one thing I guess, to just finally,
I was gonna say something, but you wrapped it up nice.
How does one know they have established a healthy relationship or relationships?
Longevity. I think like really, really healthy relationships. I think some of them that are really good don't even need that much maintenance. Like you can revisit them and like they're there and like they're available to you. Like the person knows that you're there if you need them. It's not needy. Like it's just so strong. It just always exists.
I think being genuine.
And now we going back to that point. But just be yourself.
Based on, I guess, Simba's question, where he's questioning longevity and what exactly is that, and how is that being looked upon as being cause for a healthy relationship. Would you like to chime in and share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like people and things change. So like every friend you have for a short period, a long period, they can always change like who and how they are. But I think you do interact with some people who like for whatever reason, you just click very quickly and like very well with them. So, I mean, like we could say anyone one is going to change overnight and like that's fine. That applies to everybody. But like new friends don't always last the whole time. Like maybe you click up on a specific topic and then that topic's interest dwindles out, and then that friendship is over. So I definitely think that you do have to value the length of a friendship because friendships aren't family relationships. Like they need work to sort of function over a long period of time. And if people put that in, and it works, I think that is valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. So we're gonna jump. We're gonna kind of like go off of the list in terms of going like 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna ask a question about trust. Why is trust so complicated to be maintained? Any thoughts on that?
I think because you have to be. You guys go ahead. I'm gonna let the ladies answer this one.
Because we're human. Because when we're human, the emotions that we would have when we completely trust someone, and then when we feel betrayed or feel that trust is starting to break, it's hurtful from a selfish perspective because you feel like you've given something to them that's
Go ahead.
Oh, you felt like you've given something to them that's, it is quite precious when you fully and completely trust someone. And the hurt that you can feel when someone makes you feel like you can't trust them is disheartening and sad. And it's hard to maintain because one simple act can erode so much of it. But it takes a lot to just build it a little bit. And unfortunately, like, it isn't something that is you're going to get back right away because of how hurt you feel, and you want to almost build a wall after to defend yourself from getting hurt again once you've trusted somebody. But if they ask for, I guess, forgiveness, and they apologize, and they want you to trust them again, then it's hard to kind of keep going, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's like back to this friend that I had, like on every other front, every other aspect of our relationship was like awesome. Like we had all the same common interests, even things that we disagreed on in like intense ways, like religion really didn't matter because so many things were just good. But when we went through like this situation with this world's worst boyfriend, like that one little thing that she did that I felt breached the trust, like everything good she did, which was the majority, it doesn't matter for me. I care, but I don't care enough to sort of reforge what we had before.
How long did you know your friend for? Like how many years? Was it like childhood kind of thing?
Yeah, probably for like 15 years, and then we got closer in the last like 4 years.
So I think it's so. I had one of those. When you were saying that, I just remember not as crazy and interesting as that story.
Jerry Springer-esque.
But so for example, like one of my friends, I've known him since I was like probably like 5. Everyone knows the family. He's like the brother I never had, and we got into a big kind of argument, over some trust, different things like that, and going back to the unity, which is the theme of the podcast episode, it was really about compromising and doing these different things, or else it would have been like exactly what you said. You've been great. We've known each other damn near our whole lives, but what you did, I'm sorry, I can't take it back. And done, right? So I literally had to, and I felt I wasn't that much in the wrong, but I felt I had to significantly say, hey, you know what? Let me understand why he came at me in that manner. And even do some, compromising as well to, again, kind of getting back the friendship, the relationship. But
yeah, and it was just easier for me to say like, no.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Do
you miss it? Do you miss
Yeah, like very much so. But it's like now I'm also like too proud. Like now I'm being proud. Like now I don't, like I've ignored you for this long. Like
Too
keep
late
it
now.
going.
Yeah.
It's been a year. Yeah.
How long?
A year.
If she reached out.
She does. She write me like long, nice texts, and I write like thanks. It's one of those.
The short, the short one word answer type
I
of
saw
thing.
this thing and thought of you. Okay, yeah, I'm doing all that. It's easier.
Sometimes that is when one chooses to, I guess, the easy way out.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's like you're complicating the situation even more.
Yeah. I'm hearing that via conversation.
But if it's something you really value, of course you're gonna go about rectifying that. But if it's something you don't really value, you're gonna have to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely feel trust is complicated to be maintained. More because that level of selfishness that I think we all have inside of us. And that self-preservation and all that good stuff. But it's like, if someone failed you, let's do this. Someone cheated on you in relationships, and use that example. You will be hurt, but you'll find a way to survive that. In most cases, some people they can't, They just don't have the will. You know, they might just give up on life because someone cheated on them in a relationship. But others is like, okay, whatever. You know, they might blow it off. You know, they might seek out revenge in any case. But you know, that's an example of how like they have a fallback, and their fallback method would be like, well, I only trusted this person so much that if I felt like it came a point where they violated my trust, it wouldn't be that much of a blow to me. It wouldn't have a significant impact on my life or my livelihood. Like, I can survive that, you know? And I think, you know, if one can get to a state where they can be more selfless, it would probably be as complicated and something that probably can be more maintained. But it's like, of course, you would want to have in that relationship of mutual selflessness, where it's like you feel like that person is reciprocating where you feel like you at, which is complicated in itself, because will that person actually be able to reach a state like that, where you feel like they're showing us the same level of selflessness you have, in terms of where it's like it's about us together and it's not just about I.
You kind of answered. You wrapped it up again. So I had something, but I was like, okay, no, he's going in there. So go ahead.
What does unconditional support look like?
Depends.
When that question is asked, what do you think? What does that mean? What does it mean to show unconditional support?
That depends. I think it goes back to what Christina was saying. At least the first thing I thought about was like what do I view as like love and apology? Going back to those two kind of pillars, right? I may view, if I'm in a relationship or even my friend, unconditional support as something specific to me. Like, I'm going to want that person to do X, Y, Z, while maybe another person, unconditional support to them is, you know, being there all the time or saying nice things or buying them gifts or, you know, etc. Right? Because, it's quality time or, forgiveness or, saying you apologize. So I would say it depends. It depends on the individual and what that unconditional support means. I guess generally you could just say just having people who are there to support you, friends, family, through the ups and downs. If I wanted to like put it in all in one box, right? But
I think that some people also feel like support should come when they're making the wrong choices or the wrong decisions. So I recall a coworker telling me last week about a certain participant they have who is with child, and they wanted moral support or like even congratulations that did not come. And like for me, were that me, the reason that wouldn't be coming is because that wasn't a good life choice for you right now. And it's in my mind, it would be supportive for me to not support or celebrate, making the wrong choice, regardless of like how you view it.
And that's why I would say it depends, because I know someone who like what you just said in the total opposite sense, where they made a wrong choice, sure, but I guess they understand that, and I would like you to congrats and support me to help me get through this so-called bad moment, so we can make it something successful.
Definitely.
I think unconditional support is also having that person's interest, their best interest, in your heart. And sometimes that fluctuates because that's going to differ sometimes from your point of view. What they want and what you want for them will clash. So unconditionally is, I feel like, even if it clashes and even if they hurt you because they disagree, because you care about them, because you are prioritizing them, it won't dissuade you from continuing to support them, whether it be voicing your opinions that aren't aligned to theirs, or supporting them in their opinions so that they feel good. But sometimes I feel that there is support, but it's not unconditional because people will waver. And what happens is they might fall off that wagon and not continue to be there for you because they were offended or they were hurt. But it's not really about them if you're trying to support someone. It's really about the person that you're trying to care about.
Yep.
Thanks. So, guys versus the girls. Do men have more camaraderie than women?
I think stereotypically, a lot of people might feel that they do. And I think there's also like a stereotypical belief that women drag each other down more than they try to lift one another up or compliment one another. And I don't know if that has to do with like age and maturity, but like just, it's self-referential for me to say this, but like as I've gotten older, I noticed that I do not see that with women. I see women have as much camaraderie, as men do. I think to think about that, like, for adult women is a little bit stereotypical.
I would actually agree with that. I think that there are stereotypes where women are mean to each other, they judge each other really quickly, and they're not as helpful to each other, while guys are a lot more easygoing, or they'll be more bros together. But
The bromance is real.
yes, romance is seriously real sometimes. But I think that what I've discovered is in some of my circles of friends and amongst really great, strong women I've met, the support and the love and the kind of camaraderie is just as strong, if not maybe stronger than sometimes than guys, because at times, I guess, like when you were saying, when women get older, they're going to be connecting and talking about a lot of deeper issues than just face value gossip of high school things or fashion or the latest trends and celebrities, but they talk about maybe relationships and love and their careers and their fears, and these are topics that people will kind of be behind you and support you on. And I'm not a guy, but I don't know if guys really talk very, very deeply on maybe like those topics for camaraderie and support. Maybe stereotypically it's kind of like they're circling around their sports and their fantasy footballs and whatnot. Of course, that's not the case. I'm sure they definitely talk a lot about these topics, but what I'm saying is, from a women's perspective, hey,
How dare
I'm
you?
just saying
Not
strictly
just
from strictly from speaking like as a woman, I do see a lot of really strong camaraderie amongst each other.
I think that women are also aware that other people think that they are not like that. Like, I actually make the effort to not be that way because I'm aware that many people think that that's the case. Like, I effort to not, be a part of that.
Well, I want to share the reason why I came up with this question. Because I guess, surveyed or polled various women. And, I asked a question like, hey, where your girlfriends at? Where's the girls? I don't have no girlfriends. I don't have no friends. I'm like, what's up? Like, where's it at? Like, I don't understand. Like, for a guy, I feel like it can be kind of easy to make guy friends, to make male friends and so forth. Because of, yes, we have sports. But we have other things that tie us together.
We have other things.
Other ambitions, where it's making money, where it's, becoming successful professionals, whatever it is. There's other things that we'll find in common. And I don't know if it's a thing with women when it comes to like, okay, well, she's looking at my man too much, or whatever the case, and it might be the jealousy or the lack of trust that comes from that, or it's like, because I had a friend of mine whose girlfriend cut off all her girlfriends when she got in a relationship with him. And I could not understand why would she cut off all, literally, I don't have any more girlfriends now.
I only hang out with this.
Yeah,
It's
since
usually the opposite.
Yeah.
since I started dating him, but in a way also wanted him to do the same thing. Where it was like...
Cut off his girlfriends or cut off his
guy friends too.
Just so only they can
Like,
hang
it's
out.
Only they
us.
can. Me,
So what
us
if he
against the
hangs out
world.
with his girlfriends and she hangs
No,
out
but
with
I think
guy
it's just... I
friends?
think it's
All
just,
friends.
I think it's
all friends.
So just them against the world.
But it was like, initially it was like her just like cutting off all her girlfriends.
Right.
Because I remember when I first met her, they say there's a saying, it's like no wifing in the club. He was in a club and, he liked her. And I was like, okay, well, all right. and she's with a bunch of girlfriends, and I don't think she talks to any of those girlfriends nowadays, or whatever be the case. But it was something that I found really interesting. Is like why would you just start cutting people off because you decided you want to get in a relationship with someone?
My first question to you would be to what the girls in the panel just mentioned, the ladies, the women. How old was she when that happened?
She's in her 20s. I think she's still in her 20s.
The first thing I would say is she's not mature enough. Like, she's not mature. To your point where you're saying, like, people usually, like, there's a stereotype, but, like, when you get older, to me, I agree with you guys. Like, I don't see it as much, like, you know, my sisters or older, you know, female friends. It's definitely different from, like, so my sister, who's younger than me, she has a friend, just graduated, and my sister has a boyfriend now, and she's like, oh, to what you were saying, where you know, you don't spend enough time with me anymore now that you have a boyfriend. And my sister's old enough to be like, well, he's my, you know, this is my boyfriend now, but you're still my friend. Part of me feels that she wasn't as mature as she is now. She may cut her friend off to exactly what your friend just did, so they don't go into any of that, which kind of adds to the stereotype that every girl's a catty and all that extra stuff. I agree with you guys. Even on the male end, and I really, I'm a guy. I'm gonna argue, and feel free to push back here. Like, sure, I guess maybe male. You know, sports. You know, I give you crap. I give you crap, but I love it. It's true. But
it's like instant bonding when they start talking about teams, and they just.
that is. I literally had a girl literally walk in, and she was this quick story, and she was just like, you know, I didn't know anyone there, and then she was like, hey, you like basketball? He's like basketball. Hey, just go in. I'm like, I see that all the time, whether it's intentional or not. But you know, I would ask you this, guys, be easygoing and the camaraderie. You know, hey, we can hang out with sports. But do you really think, from your relationship right now, that, you know, over the span of your life, like, you actually had, like, a lot of the so-called friends that we easily, you know, we met, you were able to actually, like, speak on some significant and real stuff about your life? Like, part of me feels like it's the bromance. We can hang out, we have a good time, watch sports, but, like, real stuff where I may need support or help on, I may not even go to them sometimes, right? Maybe it's like a superficial. Sometimes I feel it.
It's like maybe 2 levels, I think.
Yeah, so like
when you think camaraderie, for some reason I feel like you think more of the maybe superficial kind.
Yeah.
Where you're like, hey, let's meet up for a drink, let's talk about this, But when I was talking about maybe, I don't know, the deeper level of camaraderie, where at least for like women, when I see them talk about and be supportive with each other on, you know, relationship problems or family problems or career aspirations and all these different things, it's deeper than just superficial. And I think it's like 2 different things.
Yeah.
It's not just.
Yeah, I think they're definitely more complicated relationships.
I thought you was gonna say something.
I'm seconding the motion. When you have relationships that are much deeper like that, they're also much more prone to get complicated. If you're going to go into sort of your love life and your work life and the complications of your life, like, that leaves you more vulnerable to that person. That leaves you sort of more open to be rejected by or talked about by that person. So perhaps one of the reasons female relationships maybe look more catty, or like women look more like friendless, like you said, is because it's just a lot more maintenance and work that goes into them than just like, you know, we're going to the bar and we're talking about, you know, what's on TV. It's a lot more invested.
I feel like you're gonna say sports.
I tried to be delicate. There's just a lot more.
You wanted to say it.
On TV,
more
there's
invested in
activities around.
A bar, sports.
I think, and I don't know, maybe part of my matured perspective on life could have stemmed from growing up around a bunch of women, and kind of seeing somewhat things from their eyes. But I feel like I'm pretty good at choosing my own crowd, and I don't just have superficial conversations. I feel like it definitely gets deeper. Like, you know, I've developed like some friends for life, and, you know, build relationships for life. Like, you know, for example, the relationship I have with Simba, where it's like someone that like I've known since they were 18, and it was so funny. I always tell the story, but it's like Simba wanted to hang out with me for a while,
Kind of crush.
and he couldn't hang out with me. But I made sure that when he turned 21, I did something significant, and I took him to a Jello wrestling match, and we had, he had a good time. We had a good experience, but it was something I felt like I didn't need to do that was significant enough for him in terms of having that first experience with me and being able to hang out. But I really feel like, my approach to developing relationships can never just be based on sports, especially nowadays, because I look too much to wanting to educate myself and wanting to grow. And based on, from working in the nonprofit field, from volunteering in the nonprofit field, from doing this podcast, it's all towards leading towards growth and sharing the knowledge and building on knowledge. So, like, I feel like that's something for me that is like, is a driving force. So my interactions, have to be that way. Like, I don't feel like I should be connected with someone and it's just baseless. It has to be something there that I feel like, okay, we have a foundation that we can build from. But it's also, I think, is like we have layers or levels in life and how we present ourselves and how we can connect with others. And it's like, if it's only for these particular layers or levels, it just is what it is. That's what we have. And then for others, it's like, okay, we can open up more. Because I feel like we learn universally, so one should never place some limits on the knowledge that they can share or the knowledge that they can gain, if that makes sense.
It does.
There we go. Okay,
Cool.
all right.
All right. All right, let's get to this question, which starts with a statement, which is, I'm selfish and that will always be an option of behavior. How do you feel about that statement?
Yes. That will always be an option of behavior for me. I think I typically work in like my self-interest. If there's other people who happen to share that with me, that is something that, we can work on together. But if I'm being like very, very honest with myself, I think that I typically, like I said, like I like to do things alone. Like I hesitate to do things together. And therefore, like that statement has to be true about me. I feel like if I want something done, there's a way I want it done. And the way that'll get done is me doing it. And like, again, like, I don't know if that's a good way to think, but we sort of touched on something similar earlier. And I was thinking about like, what are other times that it would have been better if I, had suck help, and I couldn't think of many. It's probably also like a cultural thing. It's like it's much more like typical for like Europeans. It's like part of a lot of European culture, not all, but a lot. That like you go at things alone. Same as like American culture, like every man's for themselves, like that saying, like that's something that's embedded in the culture. Like if you were successful, it's because you did it, and if you weren't, it's because, you didn't try. Which like could be like a whole nother conversation if we like started that off, but like that is definitely, something that I think I ascribe to. For the better or worse.
I'll do. My first thoughts when I had that when I heard that, sorry, was I thought about maybe growth, because part of me, when you hear that, it's like, and for someone so you're also cultural, but when I heard that, I'm like, maybe there's some things that needs to happen where they need to understand that you can't go it alone. Right? At least from my perspective, I've experienced certain things where you can go it alone. And that statement you made with if you're successful, it was that individual. And I've learned you're always good as your team, right? People are your best assets in those kind of situations. So I've always felt you need a team, a strong team, to go anywhere. However, on the flip side, I also feel that way as well. Like it's a self-preservation where you kind of have to look out for yourself, right? So full disclosure, career-wise, there's some transitions there that's happening, and so you speak to different people internally, all the management directors and all those different folks, and you try to get feedback to make the right decision. And more than once, you hear people saying, "Hey, it's your career. Like sure, you want to be loyal to this person or that person, but it's your career, and I'm sorry, but you have to think selfishly." I'll use that word. So it's a little bit twofold for me. Some things I've lived long. I'm sounding like I'm dating myself, but I've lived long enough to know that a lot of teamwork and a lot of things are a lot of team effort. You can have a leader, but you need a team. But then also on the flip side, I've had experience what you talked about in work, where I did the best option is for me to do it myself, right? And selfishly, it was a better option. So me, I'm a little bit twofold on that because I see both sides of that coin, so to speak.
I would say that there's a time and place for both. More often than not, though, I would lean on the side that being selfless is probably something I would prefer. I wrestle with this a lot, actually, and I don't know, something just about the statement of, humans are naturally selfish creatures is a bit unsettling for me, just because I feel like I've seen so much kindness and unselfishness in my life. 3 of the jobs that I've gotten so far were through connections, and for example, my past job at an advertising agency, I reached out through my alumni association towards one of the really, really top executives at a huge advertising agency. He was, if not the CEO, then the VP of all digital marketing. And I went out on a limb on LinkedIn and I said, "Hey, I would really love to kind of better understand what you do, the industry, and pick your brain as I'm at a crossroads in my career." He met with me. He talked with me, and he then introduced me to at least 9 or 10 other top-level, C executives at other advertising agencies, chief creative officers, chief technology officers, chief strategy officers, just to talk to them, to ask them how their agencies are. And that's how I got my job. And he didn't really owe anything to me. That was a very selfless thing he did. Rasheem and I currently volunteer, and I love doing it because I feel like it's paying it forward. It's not being selfish. It's really trying to be selfless and help. And I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm just hoping that they'll be able to, I guess, benefit from whatever insights or knowledge or help that I could provide. At the same time, though, when you're talking about your own career, or if it's either you or the company, or if you have to make a huge monumental decision about your love life or your career or something, then there's a time and place to, I guess, also be selfish, because you are
It's your
here
career. It's your happiness.
It's your experience.
It's your life, right? Yeah.
It is your life. But I would say more often than not, when that's not put on the line, I would lean towards being selfless, because I think that opens up the doors and opportunity to bump into a lot of amazing experiences, than trying to go at it maybe, differently. And to talk about the point where I feel like someone gets to be somewhere really successful by themselves and working there. I don't know. I feel like if anybody's truly successful, they got the help of someone, whether it was, their mom's support saying you can do it, or someone making a connection to them, helping them, lead them this way, or working in a team and feeling motivated in some way. I don't know if there's a way to really do it all by yourself in such a harsh world sometimes. It can be a very cutthroat world, especially business-wise.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I've learned it's a lot of connections, and what you were saying definitely made sense to me. And one of the guys who actually I reached out to, he was a CTO, and about different things, and I told Rasheem about. I won't get into, but I made a decision, and I'm waiting for one of the management. He's on vacation. He's gonna come back, so I'm gonna tell him, hey, what's gonna happen. And I taught selfishly. I was like, this is my career.
Yes.
I listened to all the feedback from everyone. I'm like, hey, you know what? This is going to be the new thing.
for where I work, and I want to be on that. And I'm going to think selfishly, professionally, and I made that call. And I do think, as there's a time and place for it personally too, for happiness.
Yes.
To make that call and say, hey, you know what? And you know this, I don't want to bring up the girl's name, but I made a call to, and then a friend, but you know her. And I told myself, I'm going to be selfish, and I'm not going to allow myself to be in this relationship because I am not happy. Right? It was like a friendship that was like, I'm like, this seems toxic. Right? And it's a friendship, not platonic, straight friendship. And it's like, this is too toxic. So I had to be selfish and say, I'm sorry. We can't do this anymore. I'm not going to, have this relationship for the sake of my happiness.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways, at least for me.
Yeah, I definitely understand where both of you are coming from. I think one thing that's really important is that I know I'm aware. If one really loves themselves and they trust in their abilities, they are going to ultimately choose themselves in terms of matters or situations where they might feel at risk, if that makes sense. Whereas, that love is going to make sure you preserve yourself. It's like, okay, I'm going to make sure, if anything, if I'm the last person on earth, I got some water or some kale chips as a joke. But I'm like, what? some way that I can sustain my life, is because, honestly speaking, a lot of people I don't know. I feel like they really struggle with loving themselves. But I feel like if you do love yourself, then that's something that's going to probably be automatic for you, in terms of choosing definitely to make sure that you're good before someone else in maybe a lot of situations, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I've always been the one that shared out. That's been for me. Like, I always have been about sharing. And I feel like selfless definitely is something that I look to do more of. And even when I know I'm being selfish, it's still leading to selflessness. And that's how I look at it. Like, I'm an introvert and an extrovert, and I love taking in positive energy. I love volunteering. I love that experience, and that's part of that is me being selfish as well. But I know I'm giving it up. I'm giving it back out. So as much as I'm taking it, I'm putting it right back out. And today when I was I had shot a text out to friends or sent a text message, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to volunteer. I actually got happy about that. It's like I feel like, yeah, volunteer.
You're a good person.
But I really felt excited about that, knowing that what I can get from it and what I would like to put into it. So I feel like, yes, sometimes when it comes to one's survival methods, you have to be selfish, in terms of, to sustain your livelihood and so forth. But, I feel like that is not a always option for me. And can't be always option for me based on me being able to be successful in life. I feel like one has to understand that they just don't have all the cards at times, and someone else may have a card that they can, lend you, give to you, and that'll be the card that sets you right on your path or where you need to be at. So honestly speaking, that's why I'm trying to for what I'm trying to put for now with the group of friends that I have, in terms of okay, let's really look at this and let's look at us really building a team. That can be successful in more than one front. Yeah, we can go out, hang out, we can party and bullshit, but that's not what all life's about, And, or chasing skirts or whatever you want to call it, because we guys, but that's not all what life's about for me. And it's to be honest, it's I want to do more, than just make money. But it's I want to actually be able to do more, build more, and bring more, and be more positive role models, And I think that's more what I'm looking to do and looking to accomplish. So that's how I would look at that. Final question, which is something I'm still not too conscious about, and something I have to actually do more research and make myself more aware about what type of unified movement is Black Lives Matters, and what are you guys' thoughts when it comes to that and that initiative?
So, I had this conversation with someone, be like a week, 2 weeks ago, where they said the same thing. Like, what is this? Like, what is the goal of this? Like, what does this mean? And after the conversation, I actually went on their website and I tried to find like a mission statement that was very clear, that wasn't there. But
On the Black Lives Matter website or .org?
yeah,
Oh.
it's something like that, like their official movement website. There's no, sentence directive. But it seems like because social media allows people to film things that happen and see things that happen, like police violence on mostly black male civilians, that's much more in people's faces. And it's not like that wasn't happening. That was obviously happening before people saw all these videos, but now they see them, they can watch them. So I think when they come up with the slogan of Black Lives Matter, it is to sort of say that these videos indicate that they don't matter, especially when it comes to police interaction. So I think all they're trying to say is, in not a comical way, but in almost like a satirical way, almost like saying, I can't believe we even have to state this fact, but we will, and it sounds so ludicrous that we even have to say it, so we'll say it. That they do matter. And then you see other things crop up like all lives matter or like police lives matter, which is, to rebut that whole movement. But I think all they're trying to do is say something. They're just trying to point out that, like, isn't it ludicrous that we have to say that they matter? I guess we do, because you have all these things just on social media. But it's not like that violence is new. That's old. It's just more it's visible.
So it's basically, to me, and I agree. I'm on the same page with Rasheem a little bit, where maybe I should have been more, paying attention to that movement and what's been going on. But from what I know, it started because of the police brutality that was happening to black males, or mostly black males, and the idea is to support and say, hey, this is wrong, this is not right, we need to speak out on this, we need to say to everyone, hey, what's going on here, for it to stop, or for something to be put in place so that it can be stopped or significantly reduced. To your point, Jessica, it's always been there.
Yeah.
But just like other things, it's one of those things where you can talk about it or you can speak it, you can hear rumors. But once you see a video, once you see photos, I think that's a different reaction that humans have. Like when you see something as opposed to hearing it or reading it. Yeah. It's just a different medium, right? It's just, as opposed to, text or someone announcing it on television. So I think that's kind of like increased the fervor of everyone, right? All people in America about, hey, like, what's really going on here? This is wrong. And I think all these protests and different things like that, it always starts with, at least initially, and then I think it goes into something else, at least initially, the voices of the unheard. I think a lot of times people realize or they sense that things are happening that they believe are unjust, and no one's speaking up for us. We don't have a voice. So they protest, right? I think that's why this was happening. I think, let's say 2 incidents happened, unfortunate as they are, and it was nipped in the bud. Maybe the police officers who did it were, went on trial, sent to jail. I don't think we would have had this movement, because people would have felt, hey, things are happening and things are being done to these folks or to these individuals that we felt have done an unjust act, so to speak. But,
Yeah, I agree. A chunk of it is the injustice that follows these like powerful videos that people are seeing.
Because they say, hey, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Like the Eric Garner video was a powerful video,
Sure.
and it was a long video. And for that all to end with nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like that is very profound for people.
And I'll bring this up only because you said that all lives matter and police lives matter. Part of me feels, so I agree, all lives do matter, right? And part of me, so I'm saying this as an African American, right? I'm black, right? And I'm saying this, and I always say this, where the fervor and that same intensity that we speak up about for, an injustice or something done wrong to us within another community, right? We should have that within our community as well, right? And I'm saying that like kind of, we should be personally responsible for that. However, I was just, again, listening to the podcast and reading up on this issue where I feel like when you have an all lives matter, so you initially have a Black Lives Matter movement and you have an all lives matter, it's diminishing
It's
Black Lives Matter and
diminishing.
what their movement is to America.
Of course.
Right? Because you're saying you're kind of dismissing to a certain degree or putting it in a lesser light of this new movement.
Yeah.
So it's all Black Lives Matter begins to be a shadow of All Lives Matter, and that shouldn't be the case because this movement is very important as well, if not more important, at least during this current time.
Right, in the context.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it, folks.
think-
I'm good. Go ahead.
I think that also what people have a problem with is that they don't want to feel like anyone is really above the law. And within our law system, if things are happening that you feel like there's something wrong with the system in which you're supposed to feel protected in, then there's something that you feel like you should do about that so that you are protected, you do feel safe, and it goes much deeper than just feeling something's wrong. It feels like you feels unjust, it feels unsafe, it feels unfair.
Yeah.
This is painful. I'd say it's painful just because it's like, I don't know if racism in America will ever die. I don't know if for black people and perhaps still some other minorities will feel like they ever will receive justice for the slave trade and for whatever complications that has happened throughout the years with how minorities are treated in America. I'm Baskin Robbins plus, and I think when I actually started volunteering some years ago, or
Just quick to interject for some folks who may not be familiar with that term. What do you mean when you say you're Baskin Robbins plus?
Well, Baskin Robbins produces 31 flavors of ice cream. And that's kind of like the approach I have in terms of developing relationships with different people. I really don't. I don't have a closed-minded approach, and I find with developing relationships with people from all different backgrounds or sexual orientations, I'm open to that because I feel like there's knowledge in everyone, and I can learn from everyone. As part of that, but I just feel like this is just something that I don't know if I can get behind. And maybe because I don't have that much knowledge, I don't really know where they're going with it in terms of saying Black Lives Matter. Like, what else is this leading towards? Like, what else is this initiative really supposed to be leaning towards where it's going to have that much of a significant impact? I don't know.
So you're saying you don't support it because...
I didn't say I didn't support it.
What did you say?
I said I don't know how I can get behind it.
You can't discern its direction or its destination.
That's what I mean. It's like I don't know how I can get behind it at this point in time, if that makes sense. Because there's things that are still unsettled. People saying, yeah, they want their 40 acres and a mule. Has that really happened for people? Some people still can't let go their prejudices or their level of racism that they might have. But I think more now is more prejudice. And then some people are just still racist. It is what it is in America. But I just feel like I don't know how I can fully get behind this because maybe I'm just not aware of it as much to know how they are pushing this initiative forward. And if you have police lives matter, all lives matter, which I feel all lives do matter, but it's like
You find it just like a statement. You find it like a statement with no action.
Yes.
I think it
at this
might
present time.
it might be just it might just rely on the power of the statement. I think that might be its purpose.
And that might actually be correct. But I feel like all of these things make sense. Okay, we know police lives matter. You know, all
Right.
lives matter. You know, so in that sense, yes.
But then, like, Black Lives Matter, maybe to them, like, that hasn't been shown. So, like, let me say that because maybe
And
people forgot.
I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly it. Right? We already know it. Right? We know all lives matter. We know all police, lives matter. Right? I know if I'm in an issue, you call the police. Right? You just still, while people may argue that they're bad cops, they're great cops and good cops as well. Right? So I think we all know that. But to Jessica's point, I think that the people who behind that movement have said, hey, I don't feel like if our lives matter, meaning black, and we need to voice this. I think that initially was the kind of like the motivation, the impetus for like, hey, this is what I think is going on, let's do this. I agree with you. I'm not sure what's going on with that right now, and maybe it's because, to your point, when you went on that website and there's no mission statement, which is one of the key things. When you have in a company, they say have a mission
Right.
statement, have a direction of where you want to go, a group, a team, a network, whatever, organization. Maybe they do. So maybe I'm speaking out of my ass right now. But if that's, I agree with you. I don't know where it is, what's going on, who's behind it, who's the face, who's the leader. I remember this guy. I think he went to Bowdoin. He's running for mayor now. D. Ray Mickerson. He's on all those late night. Like, actually, he's an activist, pretty smart guy. He was really behind it, but now I'm like, what is he doing now? Like, I'm not sure. Is he doing his own, to the selfish point, is he doing his own thing and forgot about that movement and what that means to the people who initially started it? So I agree with you. And maybe that's some research that I need to do on my own. Right.
Yeah. And I just want to say is, like, honestly, at the end of the day, I'm more about unification. And if that's having these conversations to hopefully break down these barriers. One thing I actually really kind of like loved about the organization I volunteered for when I first started volunteering, I understood what they were looking to propose was how a lot of people felt if they grew up in neighborhoods that didn't have money or project environments or, whatever. And, they being able to work with business professionals from various backgrounds and walk into these corporate buildings and not feel like they were going to be judged and feel like someone's willing to welcome them into their space and accept them and let that person know you're valued, and so express to that person, I want to be your resource, spoke volumes to me. And I feel like, if that was taken, if that was practiced in a broader way, maybe we would have less issues.
Absolutely.
Where people look at life in that way.
If that was amplified, I totally agree with you.
Because I think, I feel like that's what life should be about, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I stayed involved in this organization for so long, because I see that's what they were making an effort to do. Regardless if people still will go about their ways on whatever other levels they are at, professionally wise and all that, because it's professional training. But I just feel like if we can ever get to that point, which I don't know what's going to happen in my lifetime, that would be awesome.
Or any lifetime.
But that's like, that's something like I definitely try to aspire to do, and try to inspire others in terms of this is something of what we should be looking at. And that's why I think I keep bringing up the situation I'm trying to do with the group of individuals or friends that I have in terms of really trying to unify efforts to really do something bigger with ourselves and, leave a mark as best we can. I thank you all. I think this was a great podcast. I really liked the direction it went, the conversation we had. We didn't address all the questions, but I feel we answered a decent amount. And there's probably going to be a part 2 to this. Who knows? Coming to theater near you. But seriously, yeah, there probably will be a part 2 to this. If anyone like has anything they want to plug, I don't know if you have your own little vlog or something else going on, or something positive you want to bring to our broader audience. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube, and we're working on our website right now.
Yes,
So hopefully
yes.
get that connected with iTunes for definitely much more, exposure for Curious Success. And what we're trying to do, like I mentioned before, we're not claiming to be experts, but we have life experience, opinions, and so forth, and knowledge that we have developed throughout the years that we wanted to share and bring to a broader audience. And, open up the conversation, man. And are you being curious about your life and your livelihood and how you can develop yourself further? So if anyone has any plugs, anything they want to share, if not, we good. Thank you all.